Welcome back, everybody. Happy holidays. Still, Christmas is approaching. Last time we talked about shipping. Today we're going to talk about making some battle damage on your tank or Gundam or whatever you're doing. For this, we're going to need our hobby knife, our spoon, some Tamiya putty, and something to spread the putty around. We're going to want a palette, same palette from last time. Why not keep it around? And we're going to use the putty to mold some of those impact marks. What I've done here is I've taken my hobby knife and I've kind of used it as a little bit of a drill. You can use a little pin drill or your hobby knife, no big deal, just be careful, especially with these hobby knives, they're pretty sharp. You can go ahead and like make some extra scratches or stuff like that. No big deal. This is totally preferential, so that all this stuff is up to you, really. I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit how. So we're going to take our putty here, and this stuff is awesome. It stinks a little bit, but it is awesome to work with. You get plenty of time to work with it, so there's no need to rush. You've got plenty of time before this dries. So we're going to apply it. We're going to make a fake slash, and I'm not going to sculpt that into the, or I'm not going to carve that into the spoon here. I'm going to sculpt it in with the putty. But with the impact crater from the round, I did drill the little hole. You don't have to, I suppose, but otherwise to make this work, you're going to have to put a lot of putty on there. You'll see in a minute when we get there. So you're just going to spread it around, to your heart's content, really. This is, like I said, this is all preferential. Watch out for some kitty cat hair if you got cats running around. And then we're going to make our little slash mark. Start to make it at least. And like I said, you've got not tons of time, but you have plenty of time to work with this stuff before it starts drying. You can go as sparsely with this as you want, or you can get pretty crazy with it. Just be aware that once it dries, this is what it's going to look like a little bit, but it's still not really dry yet. So we still have time to shape it, and that's what we're going to do now. So with the rounded end of a paintbrush or some sort of thin tool with a rounded end, we're going to go ahead and start, shaping that impact crater. Neither of these are working out too good, so if this doesn't work out for you that way, you can take, your applicator, whatever you're using, and you can freely sculpt this stuff around. And honestly, the more jagged you get it to look, the better, because it's either a beam round or some sort of artillery round or something impacting this metal. It's not going to be a perfect circular dent or anything like that. So just be creative. You can be creative with the angles that you're going to have this round impacting on. You can be creative with the spalling that it's going to leave behind, and that's these little streaks of, little metally bits that fly off everywhere else after impact. We're going to do the same thing over here with our big slash mark, remembering that the slash goes down, so we're moving down with our applicator here. And this is nothing, just a little silicone tipped brush that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. They work out pretty nicely for this Tamiya putty. Instead of having to deal with the cleanup on a brush afterwards, this stuff cleans off real nice. I ended up making this slash mark a little on the wide side, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. Like I said, all this is preferential, and that's why we do it on spoons. And that's why I'm doing this on spoons here, just to show you, what people mean when they say that. So we're going to sculpt in our sides here, because the effect that we're looking for is like gouged in metal, but also rounded out and deformed to the sides. So we're going to kind of push that in, mostly just to narrow up the area of the slash mark itself. And then we're going to try to round those edges over, as if something came in and peeled them off. And you can see this putty is still super malleable. It wants to work with you. It takes quite a while to actually like dry to hardness. But that's okay. Use that to your benefit. Just kind of, sculpt that stuff around, get it however you want it. At this point, you could probably scrape it entirely off with a hobby knife if you're just completely unhappy with how it looks. So, no big deals here. Next, we're going to talk about painting. So all I did here was I primed the spoon and I painted it with a color that I'm going to show you in a little while here. But what we're going to do now is talk about the weathering effects of these impacts, because we can't just leave them the same color that we've painted, because it just throws off the illusion at that point. So I'm going to mix up my thinned black with my normal black here again, just to give myself a little bit of a thicker paint to use. Mix that up with our little stirring straw. These things are so great for stirring. You can get like 2,000 of them on Amazon for like $5. And they're perfect for this, or mixing them in your airbrush or whatever. These little coffee straws are awesome. So we're going to come in here again with that light gray, just to contrast our black. We want to try and have two different colors for the chipping and stuff. And we're gonna touch on chipping again too. We're going to kind of throw it all together in this. But so we've got our impact craters. The putty is dried on my brush here. I'll have to take care of that. And we're just going to outline most of what we've done here with the black at first. That color that I painted the spoon is tire black from Vallejo, by the way. Great color. It's an awesome greenish color. It works out really good. I painted a Boba Fett with that color. But so we're going to come in. We're just going to get the inside and create those shadows. We want to add a little bit of depth to this and just give the eye something to look at while we're doing this, you know. Because anytime you add stuff like this is immediately where the eyes are going to go. Somebody looking at your kit, they're going to look instantly at this sort of stuff. So we want to give the eye some shadow and some depth to look at while they're ogling your kits. So we're just going to fill this in almost entirely with the black. We're going to outline some of the spalling. All we're doing here is creating that contrast. We're going to go over most of this anyways. And as usual with a lot of acrylic colors, when they dry, they're going to look a lot darker than it does now. So, you know, it might look really vibrant when you're applying it, and then you come back and you look at it a few hours later, it's going to look dark and it's going to look a little better. So that's all we're doing right now, is we're setting up that work for later. So we're just continuing along, you know, filling in this black. No big deal. There's really not any way to mess this up at this point, you know. And like old Bob Ross used to say, you know, we don't have any accidents, just happy little missteps that we do here. And that's all we're doing. So we're gonna do this in, get our black all filled in, and we're gonna let this dry. We're gonna let the black dry before we come in and hit it with the gray. So we'll be right back with the gray. And here we go. So the black has dried, and now we're going to move on to this gray. And we're going to end up chipping all of this just to add that extra little bit. Let me get my dumb hands into the camera here. But we're going to add that gray. Like I had said about chipping, I imagine these things have maybe a couple base layers. Maybe it's been painted over a couple times, you know. Just adding that extra variety really gives your viewers something to look at while they're checking your kit out. So we're just going to come around that spalling with that gray. Do the same thing over here on the big slash mark. Now all these colors, these are totally preferential. I definitely lean towards more drab military colors for these things that I'm painting. And normally those have a black or a gray base color or something like that. So it just works a bit for me. Now with this one, we don't want to fully envelop everything in the gray. We just want to touch those edges and stuff. And so now we're going to bring it all together with what we talked about last time, and we're going to do some chipping. And the chipping is really going to help sell this effect. Again, you got to smear off that chipping or that paint. You don't want to go in with this much paint. So just wipe off as much of it as you can until we're left with a little pattern like this. That is perfect. So once you've got that going on, you're just going to come in here. You're going to hit that battle damage, those bullet holes, whatever effect you're trying to create. And then while you're at it, this is the great time to do the rest of the chipping on the surface. Now you can, like we talked about last time, we can go as light as you want with this or as heavy as you want with this. If you're going to get busy with some impact craters and slash marks and stuff like that, it never hurts to get busy with chipping either. I always chip. You always always want to chip. It just gives that extra little layer of something to look at. So we've hit that with our black, and now we're gonna hit it with the gray, just to add that extra little layer of depth. Do the same process, dip that into the gray. Make sure we try to get, pretty even coverage of the foam or sponge or whatever it is that you're using. Wipe off as much of that excess as we can. We don't want a ton of this stuff left on there. Now here I've accidentally blended it with my gray or with my black, but not a big deal. So we're going to come back in, do the same chipping. And look at this. Look, this is already starting to pop. It's just these little tiny steps, and you've transformed something from looking so flat and one-dimensional to having some depth to it, having some some shadows and textures to it. We've added these things in there just by these couple little steps. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to add a little bit of discoloration. I love this color by Vallejo, Smoke. Such an awesome color. It's a very, very dark viscous brown. It's such a great color. But what we're going to do with this is we're going to come in twice. And what I imagine this is like the beginning of some rust, that oxidized brown that starts to happen when exposed metal has been chipped away of its paint, and now the bare metal is out there for the elements. This is what I imagine how that starts to look. And you can look at any vehicle outside and see that rust starting to form on it, and you're gonna see those light browns and those light reds start to happen, and the oranges of the rust. And you can certainly add those on if you want to. This I'm just kind of willy-nilly putting it on here just for that extra little bit of color. I'm not going for super realism here, just a little tutorial on how to weather these up just a little bit. Whatever it is that you're doing, Gundams, tanks, trucks, planes. I'm sure things would look a little different on planes. They don't have to ride on roads or anything, so mud on a plane, for instance, probably isn't going to happen unless it's a crashed model. But so now we're going to mix this smoke with a little bit of black. And what this gives us is almost an oil color. And I really love this for, joints or anything like that, especially on Gundams, anything that could leak. Oil might be spilling out of this thing or whatever. I love mixing that smoke and this black color together for that. But it's the same thing with streaking effects. We want to layer that up because it's going to dry in the one color and it's going to look very flat. So we want to avoid that and add just that little extra depth. Not going too crazy here. Just a little extra, little streak in there, Just, it adds so much. Makes these things, whatever it is that you're going to throw this on, just makes it look so used and abused, just it's so battlefield left behind, It's such an awesome effect. So I hope you guys learned a little bit from this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is what it looks like. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year if I don't get back to you.